Hey everyone, another quick update. This one about a new discovery, a new player in the field of the gambler's Dharma techniques. And I was alerted to this new player by a student, Vedis of mine, who was reading Magi astrology. And he asked me about this, and I said, I don't know. Let's see if it works. And I've applied this player in a number of games now, and of course he has as well, and the verdict is unanimous. This player, and I'll reveal who this is in a second, not that there's any need for drama, but is unilaterally negative. So wherever it goes, whatever it touches, it destroys. And in the Gambler's Dharma, I wrote that these techniques, the techniques I was presenting, account for 75% probably, or you will have 75% level of success because there's 25% of stuff we still don't know about. And I mentioned in the book the part of fortune, other dwarf planets, aside from Ceres and Pluto, different other different techniques that I'm still not aware of. And so there was always, and there will continue to be, a gap in our knowledge. So we're not God. We can't predict 100%, and I don't think anyone can. And if they say they can, you should go out the door the other way, especially if they're asking you for money. So anyway, so without further ado, let me reveal who this player is. This is the recently and newly discovered dwarf planet called Sedna. And Sedna has an extremely wide orbit, but at this time it's relatively close to our solar system and the sun in its orbit. Otherwise, it's much farther than Pluto. And perhaps this is why it's having an astrological effect, which is whose case is becoming more and more undeniable. And I'll show you a few example charts here in a minute where I've seen a chart that should go one way with a very powerful Sedna balance, it goes the other way. And so I would count this just like a planet on a cusp, maybe even a point or two extra, who knows? I mean, so I would give it 9 points. Let's just stay conservative and give Sedna 9 points, just as we give any other planet. But as you know, Saturn is also malefic, but Saturn on the 10th cusp or on the 4th cusp is good, right? If he sits on the 10th cusp of a chart, of a game chart, he indicates victory. If he sits on the fourth cusp, likewise. And yet Sedna doesn't. In fact, Sedna is known as the Thor's hammer, which crushes and destroys everything. So let's take a look at a couple of charts, and I'll give you some examples of how this principle applies and how to use Sedna and where to find Sedna. So here's a chart from a couple weeks ago, Kansas City versus Tampa. Tampa was a heavy favorite. And yet, we can see here from the D9, using our D9 technique, that, and if you can't see this, I'll read it off to you. Saturn is at 17 degrees, and the ascendant of the D9 of the Namamsha is also 17 degrees. That is a clear case that the favorite is going to underperform, number one, and the game is going to be a low-scoring game. Well, the game was a low-scoring game, and the favorite did underperform, but they didn't lose. And here you would expect the favorite to lose. I mean, all other factors being equal, and there's not much else going on in this chart to make us think otherwise. However, these days, I am also going to the Western chart and referencing everything that I find with the Western horoscope, which shows me the placements of these dwarf planets. Among them are Ceres. So here's Ceres. Obviously Pluto, but our brusher's light shows Pluto. Chiron, here is Chiron. And the culprit, the one we're talking about today, which is Sedna. And this is the symbol for Sedna. And as you can see here, Sedna is at 27 degrees. If you've never read a Western chart, this is the first house cusp here. This is the ascendant. This is the 10th house cusp here. This arrow, you see this dark bolded line here? That's always the 10th cusp. And this dark bolded line here is the 4th cusp. Okay? So what do you see exactly on the 4th cusp? 26 degrees to 27 degrees. By the way, for Sedna, just as for any dwarf planet, use a 2-degree orb. Okay, no more than that. If it's 2 or 1, it's too big. Well, Sedna is within orb, and so it's going to affect the underdog team, who, even though they have the advantage of a Saturn on the D9 crushing the favorites, this helps to balance it out. And so what happened? The favorite won. It was a 1-0 game, very low scoring game. The favorite underperformed. Everyone thought they'd be much better, but they still won the game. Why? Even though they were depressed by Saturn, because the underdog too is depressed. You see, by Sedna. All right. If you didn't catch all of that, just rewind and watch it again. I'm going to show you a few more examples instead of lingering on this one. All right, so let's go to, let's see, Mets. Here's the game. Again, and I'll just stick with the Western format. Now, does that mean you have to buy a Western tropical astrological software like this? This is a solar fire. Well, not necessarily, because Sedna moves very slowly. In fact, Sedna and Chiron both move very slowly. So Sedna right now is at 27 degrees tropical. The way to calculate the degrees to convert is you add 6 and then go back 30 degrees. So plus 6 minus 30. Okay, so plus 6 gives us, let's see, 27, so 33 minus 30 degrees, or 1 sign, or minus 1 sign, gives us 3 degrees Taurus. Of course, you can also subtract 24 degrees, but I find it easier to add 6 and subtract a sign. So in Vedic, in the sidereal zodiac, Sedna is at 3 degrees Taurus at the moment. Okay? So what does that mean for you natally? Well, if you have sensitive planets or degrees around here, Sedna is Thor's hammer crushing you down at the moment. And it has to do with a number of things, and you can read more about that online. Go to Magi Astrology, and you can read more about Sedna. But for sports purposes, here we have Sedna on the 7th house cusp, which is bad for the underdog. This game, however, also has the sun on the 10th cusp. If this is too advanced, or if I'm going too fast for you guys, please refer to the book Gambler's Dharma. What I'm talking here is called cuspal strength. The sun on the 10th cusp normally gives very bad results for the favorites. It's a -9 points. But look, with Sedna on the cusp of the underdog, it's going to be -9 for the underdog, so it's +9 for the favorites. And so these two balance out. And if Sedna had not been accounted for, we would have said, hey, the favorite's going to lose this game because Sun is on the 10th cusp. And they should have lost the game if Sedna hadn't been there. Yet the favorite barely squeaked out a win, 2-1. You see? And if this were a year ago and I looked at this chart, I would have said, no, the underdog should win. But there is Sedna crushing the underdog. So this is big stuff. It's a big breakthrough for us. And so now instead of being 75%, perhaps we can say we're 85, right? Or we're approaching 80% with this new information. All right, let's take a look at another couple of charts, and then I'll let you guys go. Let's see. That's not the chart. No. What's another chart? Milwaukee, Washington. No. Well, maybe. Here we go. So here is, all right, last chart. We'll look at this one. Let's clear all of this jumble stuff. So what do we see here? We see This is a chart from a few weeks ago. We see Ketu right on the ascendant. I suppose I could show you this but I won't in the interest of brevity. You can see the information here, okay? This is the south node. Ketu is right on the ascendant. That's a negative 7 or 8 points, let's say a negative 8 points for the favorite. This is not good. So normally the favorite should lose this game, all other factors being equal. However, look, there is Sedna again, right on the fourth cusp. -9 -9 points for the dog, or if we translate it, +9 for the favorite. So the favorite won this game, barely, I think. Yeah, the score was 3-1 for the favorite. So another point to illustrate that had we not seen Sedna, Ketu on the ascendant would have shown us that the favorite would not play well. And they didn't play great, but the underdog played worse. Okay? All right, so I hope this is useful. Start using Sedna in your interpretations. Just know that right now, it's September 2018, it's at 3 degrees Taurus in the sidereal zodiac. And because it moves so slowly, it's like 320, 330, and it's moving backwards. So it's going to stay there for a few months. You can check an online ephemeris and see where Sedna is at any given time. And in fact, you could do that for all of the dwarf planets, including Ceres, 21. This is tropical, so +6 is 27. So it's about 28 degrees Leo at the moment, Ceres is. And here is Chiron. Okay, you can do that for all of these, but do pay attention to Sedna. And the more we're learning about these outer bodies, the more they become discovered, the more they seem to affect sort of mundane events. Of course, they were probably affecting mundane events before they were discovered, but being in the sort of consciousness now, they're perhaps even more relevant.